I'm Jody Haneke. I'm CEO and founder of Haneke Design. We're a full stack software construction company. Started a little over 15 years ago, and we've got a lot of experience working with startups and helping them get their product, especially their MVP, to market. A lot of technology startups we work with, typically have an idea, they want to get something out there pretty quickly, and a lot of times they have resource gaps on the technology and design side. So we help fill those gaps and help them get their first version of their application, whether that's mobile native or web-based, to market. And then eventually they hire and recruit their own staff and take it over. We work with a lot of different industries and a lot of different areas, also with large Fortune 500 companies doing enterprise services as well. And good to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Jody. My name is Ryan Deitrich, and I'm currently finishing up my master's at the University of Tampa. So I'm pretty close to you. I've actually been in your building. I spoke with Jesse, Dave, and Nathan a couple times, and I'm pretty sure you've heard the pitch with Spared before. I think you met my co-founder, Ryan, as well. But Spared is where we pay off student loans with spare change. So it's just like Bank of America's Keep the Change program, except we apply that spare change towards student loans.
Got it.
And my question is, what can we do to build and grow our customer acquisition strategy?
Okay, great. So one quick question: Where are you at in the process of launching the application? I was to the site. I watched the video. Tried to understand kind of what it is you were pitching. Is the app launched? Is it all web based, or is there a mobile component?
Yeah. So for V1, it's just going to be all web based, and currently we're kind of working out the back end pieces with the APIs and everything that we'll be using. We're planning on having it live by mid-July.
Okay. Sounds good.
And
all
currently,
right. Good.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that currently, when you went on the website, you can see that we're kind of doing a leaderboard campaign. So we're trying to get the email list going so that we have a certain amount of people signed up waiting for the app once it's live.
Okay, great. All right. So I think there's again, we work with startups, and this is the common challenge, right? Which is, how do we acquire these customers? How do we build our active user base? So your challenges are not uncommon. So I think one of the first things that I always suggest, and it's pretty basic, is that I don't think there's one solution that fits all the different startups out there. I think what you have to do is cast a pretty wide net as far as marketing the product or service online. I feel that you should allocate a budget towards doing online marketing, and then pretty much evenly distribute that across all the different social media channels and search, and then start to really look at the analytics and kind of see what's working and what's not, so that you can then start adjusting your budget and kind of double down on the things that are working and kind of lessen the efforts in the areas that aren't. So I think that a lot needs to go into trial and error from a marketing perspective to ultimately find out what's going to work for your specific product. I also think that coming up with an effective content marketing strategy that's a little more loosely coupled to the actual sales pitch can be really effective, because it gives you something to communicate out there online. So, with your product, I think of recruiting somebody who can write, or a number of content writers who can develop content around financial strategies for students and recent graduates, and publish that content online in an editorial format, and then publish links to that content in social media, both organic and paid, that drive back to the site and ultimately convert those folks. So I think again, casting a wide net in social media is important. Having that based on a solid content marketing strategy, understanding who your target audience is and the content that they might like to consume, and then bind that all together and make sure that you have analytics in place so you can track what's working and what's not. I think the other thing that we often see people they don't embrace is that you really need to use your existing users as a way to market to new users, and you have to engage them. So I think that in a solution like this, it's almost like, I'm watching in the video, it's like set it and forget it, right? It's like hook it up to your credit card, you start using your card, and then boom, behind the scenes you're starting to save that money and pay off debt. I think
exactly
communicating what's happening when, and letting the user know, like, hey, boom, that charge just got you to X goal or whatever, and then maybe they can share that with their friends and say, boom, I just hit the $1,000 mark or something like that. I think figuring out where those hooks for re-engagement are hugely important in how to not only continue to engage your existing users, but use them as brand ambassadors for Spared. So I think that's really important. And then the last recommendation that I would have is really around channels. So we're not a venture-backed company. We're a bootstrap company, revenue funded from day one. So having millions of dollars to do brand campaigns and Super Bowl ads really wasn't in the cards. So a lot of the things that we look at are how do we get to market through others? And I think channels could be really valid for Spared. I think working with large corporations and partnering with them and saying, hey, roll this out to your new hires and your new employees and be a sponsor of it. Maybe you can match funds or something like that. So now all of a sudden you're doing one sale to one customer that equals potentially hundreds of users. So I think looking at those channels, and that's just an example. I don't know if that's a good one or not, but that train of thought that says, how do I perform one sale that equals potentially thousands of sales behind the scenes. So those are some general ideas that I had after looking at like I said, looking at the site and getting an idea from you of what Spared is all about.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the insights. We have a social element kind of going on now where we have that leaderboard running and people can share their specific code with friends. And if they have friends sign up, they rank higher on the leaderboard and then they can essentially earn that amount off their student loans. So once we're live, applying that same social element like you were explaining, where we could say, hey, I just hit this goal, and then share it on social media, it does exactly the same thing. It has that viral share campaign element of it. So definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, I know at first you're talking about web only, but I think, different alerts and push notifications, if you eventually have some type of native, installed mobile application, I think is a way to kind of up that engagement even further, because, your phone buzzes in your pocket and boom, you've achieved some goal. And now you can kind of insta share. So instead of having to go proactive, users don't go back to websites or go back to apps. That's the one thing that people always, they dream that it's going to happen, but it never does. So being able to re-engage through email, re-engage through reminders or push notifications, that's the way to kind of keep that engagement as relevant as possible. And then use that for that viral lift.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're planning on doing with V2 once we get around to that. So, all right, great. Well, thank you so much for your time.